After studying this module, you shall be able to know about networking and its background, learn about different forms of networking, evaluate the benefits of networking, understand the theories of networking that explain the functioning of networks. Networking is one of the important subjects and has been studied in several disciplines and in policy actions. It has turned out to be an adequate and appropriate measure that firms need to adopt for development and growth, more so when globalization is serving as driving force. Economists have considered networks as interactive mode or an organizational form that cannot be placed within the conventional resource allocation mechanism or the one that depends on command. Networks have emerged as a new organizational form that holds a position in between markets and hierarchies. It does not involve mechanical linking but coherence or coming together of firms without any contracts or commands. Networks serve as source of values and information which contributes to learning and knowledge generation. As with social and economic networks which are affected by physical networks, these networks have taken the shape of a distinct organizational form. The following sections deal with background and concept of networks, identifies the different forms of networks and their benefits, and finally tries to develop an understanding of the underlying theories explaining the functioning of the networks.
Networks definition and background. Networks are considered as an essential component of firm's social process. They serve as a device to establish links with others to act as social platform and means for the firms to get embedded. Networks facilitate collaboration between the firms to find solutions to common problems, combine resources to gain knowledge, achieve economies of scale, gain technologies, and enter markets which are inaccessible otherwise. Firms enter into a variety of cooperative inter-firm relationships such as strategic alliances, joint ventures, and different forms of formal as well as informal network organizations. The main objective is to develop collaboration in the field of research and development, knowledge transfer, production, exports, finance, and marketing. Networks function to bring about changes and growth of the firm by allowing the individual firm to utilize resources available with others and increase their efficiency. Firms use networks as a new response mechanism for competition. It provides them ability to develop set of joint solution for common problem. It has been observed that with the time the nature of competition has changed and new strategies are required to deal with new competitive conditions. As the mass markets have replaced global niche market, firms need to specialize and gain from combining their capabilities with others in order to compete effectively. Smaller firms are the major beneficiaries of networking as it offers these firms the competitive advantage enabling them to overcome the disadvantage of size. Irrespective of the size of the firm, networking or collaboration with other firms has become one of the most important strategies for dealing with competition and achieving growth. Economic efficiency and success of the firm depends not just on how well a firm manages its own affairs, but also on its ability to manage its relations with other firms and its environment. Networks, however, is not just restricted to physical sharing of the resources, but it also involves sharing of information and skills, meeting people with expertise in similar field and competent employees, acquiring inputs at cheaper prices, financial support, and making of new customer. Another aspect of networking which is very crucial for the firm is the concept of learning through networking. The inter-firm relationship leads to organizational learning and adoption of new techniques and procedures. This enables the firm to be more competitive in dealing with firms from outside the network. Networks are based on the long-term commitments which give them advantage over the more traditional buyer-supplier relationships. Different definitions have been provided for networking. It has been defined as a specific type of relations linking set of persons, objects, and events. This indicates that the relationships between the firms are specific and has some definite target, and it is not some general or casual group of activities. The participants of networks are known and consist of diverse activities and actors. Though it has been defined in several ways, but the crux remains the same, that networking is a collaboration of group of enterprises that share their resources and talents. Despite involving collaboration, it does not reduce competition between the firms. Networks have been defined by Noteboom in 1999 as linkage between firms within a firm, that is, between the divisions, departments, or subsidiaries of the same firm, and combination of between and within. The flow of products, resources, control, communication, and cooperation may be uni or bidirectional. The linkages can be of three types. These can be vertical, which involve flow of products from the manufacturers to the consumers in the intra-firm value chain or inter-firm value chain. These can be horizontal, which involves sharing of common resources of production and distribution by the firms dealing with similar and competing products which may be substitutes in consumption. These can be diagonal or diversified and involve sharing of common resources by firms dealing in dissimilar products but are complementary in research, marketing, and distribution. Benefits of networking. Networking can be beneficial for the cooperating firms if only it effectively addresses the major issue associated with networking. The most important of which is how can firms operate effectively in collaboration with others when competition is the main principle of market forces. Thus, for the existence of network, it is essential that the participating firms must derive some benefits from the arrangement. The major benefits of networking can be summarized as the material benefits. This involves benefits derived by the participating firms as working together enables them to lower production costs and increase their sales. Psychological benefits. The participating firms no longer operate in isolation, so they find that their problems are shared by others. It becomes easier for them to share the problems and acquire solutions. Developmental benefits. Interaction with other firms enables the participating firms to gain knowledge and make them better equipped to adapt to the changing economic conditions. Business development is largely influenced by networks. Firms participating in networks have better achieved operational efficiency and did more business as compared to the isolated firms. This cooperative rather than competitive approach of networks takes advantage of the complementary skills joint resources, techniques, and management. Networks have greater power in the market as they are capable of undertaking bigger contracts, put to the use combined ideas of member firms, and be more innovative, share contracts and intelligence, have better analytic and strategic thinking, risk entering new markets, increase knowledge, and enhance managerial behavioral skills. In addition to its role in increasing the economic efficiency in production and distribution, networking plays a significant role achieving innovation. This has been the major focus area for number of studies in the recent past. Both internal and external networking is important for facilitating innovation. It has been observed that larger firms with its experience and exposure at other sites can easily incorporate the new innovative ideas in the production management. External networking involves several firms of different sizes constituting the supply chain. Here, smaller firms take the advantage of informal contact with individuals in the larger firms is very important for these firms to grow. Forms of network. The forms or structure of networks varies based on the varying degrees of cooperation, cost and benefits, interactions, and dependence on external factors. Following forms of networks have been identified. Number one, informal networks. This is the most simple and basic form of network which involves coming together of only a small number of firms. In this arrangement, role of agents is totally avoided, although there can be some role of third-party assistance to facilitate mutual help. Number two, membership-based networks. This form of networks comprise of the traditional industry associations. In such associations, members pay dues and make commitments to cooperate in solving the problem jointly. Success of the individual's business does not depend on activities of other members in the network. However, persuading firms to be the member of the network and make commitments would be a challenging task. This is overcome by the fact that in this arrangement, members are not dependent on each other, thus, they find it beneficial to readily agree to be the part of such arrangement. This type of network can also take the form of regionally concentrated clusters. Development networks. This includes contacts between SMEs, which are either bilateral or organizational or even personal. There exists no business relationship between the members. The association is mainly to openly discuss the important experiences. Unlike informal networks, meetings to discuss the issues are held regularly. Meetings are arranged at regular intervals when entrepreneurs meet each other's place, in turn to discuss the problems faced by the host for that meeting. The aim of such cooperation is to learn from each other's experience, which can be regarded as mutual mentorship within the group. This form of network includes learning network where the firms collectively learn about changes and measures required to be adopted by them to enhance their competitiveness and market power. Human resource development or HRD and training networks also forms the part of development networks. Joint action networks. Members of the network do not deal with each other as mostly they are into similar business. This form of network is characterized by an arrangement whereby firms share common resources like common premises, transport and production equipments, common export managers, transporters, etc. Each of the member firms will have access to resources, cost of which will be shared by the members. Such cooperation is often practiced to overcome export barriers, and export circles of SMEs are the most common examples for this type of networks. Project networks. It is an arrangement in which group of firms with resources and skills that are complementary comes together with an aim to achieve a specific goal. The arrangement may sometimes take the form of common business. The critical mass is often associated with this type of network. Critical mass refers to the minimum amount of resources required by the firm to overcome certain threshold, which may be related to export, production capacity, and their quality. In this form of arrangement, critical mass helps the firms to achieve goals which they may not be able to achieve if alone. Synergies are also associated with this type of networks. Synergy also enables them to achieve goals which are unachievable when alone. But for availing the synergistic advantages, the member firms should be ideal or perfectly matching with respect to their business. This form of networks also arises with collaboration of firms with non-commercial agencies like academic or research institutes for R&D works. Strategic alliances. This refers to an agreement that enables two companies that share common interest and utilize similar resources to achieve mutually beneficial goals. Strategic alliances can be vertical or horizontal. In case of vertical alliances, focus is mainly on alliances between manufacturer, supplier, or distributor relationship. It may also include alliances between customer supplier. This form of network involves cooperation between the supply chains of the member firms to meet the needs of mutual customer, while horizontal alliances focus mainly on the relationship between firms which are similar and belongs to the same industry. Strategic alliances hold a position in between networks and a partnership and are supposed to provide alternative to vertical integration. Joint ventures. This involves member of the network coming together to set up jointly owned company to manage production of specific products. This type of cooperation is strategic in nature as partners invest huge sum of money to ensure proper functioning of the arrangement along with the risks involved. The biggest advantage of this arrangement is that it allows the firms to expand and seize new business opportunity. Both critical mass and synergy remains associated with this form of networks. A joint venture differs from project network as the main achievement of this form of network is creation of new business, accumulation, and strategic use of resources and sharing of the risks. As entrepreneurial ventures are money consuming, risky, and a long term behavior if started alone, this cooperation helps in absorbing these issues. Joint units. This is the most formal type of networks. Joint units differ from joint ventures. Unlike joint ventures, in joint units, the participants come together to form a new unit and the partners continue to be part of it. Participants now operate under a common cover. In this arrangement, the participant loses its identity and functions as a legal entity only for internal purposes. All outside activities are carried out under the name of the cover. If the smaller participant is able to take advantage of the larger participants or cover image, it can maintain its freedom to certain extent and at the same time enjoy the image of the larger firm. Dynamic networks. This form is also referred as virtual networks. It is an arrangement where the firms continue with their core competencies and outsides their extra resources and skills. This, however, throws challenges and creates opportunities for SMEs, which find it's difficult to compete alone in absence of specific resources and capabilities. Theories of networking, networks, and hierarchies. According to the neoclassical economic theory, all firms maximize their profits and compete with each other for the scarce resources. Markets and hierarchies are the two basic means to compete within such system. In the market model, focus of the firm is to be efficient in small segment of the economic activity, and it depends on other specialized firms for the supply of inputs. Thus, firms are dependent on the market forces for smooth activities of all the firms to ensure their own overall efficiency. In the case of hierarchies, firms use their own organizational hierarchy to perform the stages of production and marketing and are least dependent on the market forces. Larger firms like Philip, IBM, GM, and LG are completely self-sufficient and has the potential to meet the demand for their products and services on their own. In the recent past, with the advancement of the evolutionary theory, firms are considered as a collective organization capable of resource development to a certain level on their own and having range of economic relationship with customers, suppliers, and competitors. Under these assumptions, both the concept of market and hierarchies no longer provide substantial explanation. The coming into existence of inter-firm networks since early 1980s has resulted in an organizational form which is in between markets and hierarchies. Unlike the neoclassical theory, evolutionary theory does not consider firms as isolated utility maximizer. The theory conceptualizes that the firms exist in the environment marked with innovations, limitations, and are highly unpredictable. Interaction with other firms modify the economic environment, which in turn has a modifying effect on the firms. Thus, strategic networks are based on the view of minimizing the transaction cost. The transaction cost theory. Earlier, firm theory considered firm to be solely engaged in profit maximization and are in no way dependent on other firms or its own employees in decision-making processes. In the 1970s, the concept of alternative governance structure of organization, market, and firms became prominent. It was also the time when transaction cost issue gained significant prominence in the literature, leading to the transaction cost theory presented by Williamson in 1975. Transactions are carried without transaction cost in case of perfect market, as information is available freely, decisions are rational, and alternative buyers and suppliers are always available. As these conditions do not prevail, there is a cost associated with transaction. Transaction costs include all costs associated with collection and processing of information, negotiation processes, agreements, supervisions, and sanctions. The cost is determined by the uncertainty involved and the frequency of transactions. Thus, networks which are more expensive are better suited to reduce transaction costs in the long term as compared to hierarchical transactions. Transaction cost has been considered as an outcome of the inefficiencies arising from activities related to production and distribution. This often includes cost of planning, monitoring, contracting tasks, and insurance amount. Firms forming the part of the clusters gain much more from the reduction in communication and transportation cost as compared to the isolated firms. transaction involving high degree of uncertainty and complexity leads to failure of market transactions. Hierarchies tend to fail even in case of transactions which are less complicated as adaptation is a costlier affair. However, organizational forms or networks which are intermediate between market and hierarchy derive advantages of both forms of organizations and prevent transaction failure. Further, networks are not homogeneous as it comprises of mixture of strongly and weakly related firms. The greatest advantage of such network is that the relationships between these firms are flexible and can always change to suit the environment. In case of networks, the cooperative relation between the firms is strengthened by the mutual trust that these firms have on each other. Open networks are closest to market, while closed networks are closest to hierarchies. Open networks are marked by limited entry and exit barriers and a relatively low mutual dependency. A high degree of multilateral trust dwells between the participants. In case of closed networks, cooperative relationships are held by the focal company. In this type of networks, at times, cooperative relationship may become so rigid that it hampers the advantages of networks such as flexibility, adaptability, and informational openness. Other network theories. Although transaction cost theory is the most important of all the theories that could explain the functioning of networks, there are several other theories that can also explain the functioning. Some of the prominent are number one, the network theory. This theory is represented by Upasala's school of thought and is quite similar to the transaction cost theory, as this theory also states that strength of the bond between the cooperating firms can vary. Strongly bonded networks are more long-term in nature as compared to rather volatile, weakly bonded networks. The Upasala tradition analyzes the networks keeping in view their resources. Members of the networks exhibit different power and position in the network due to difference in resources. The second is resource-based theory. According to this theory, also, uncertainty, control, power, and mutual trust plays a very significant role in networks. Unlike transaction cost theory, which involves relationship between the firms only, this theory also includes personal relationship and friendship. Number three, social network theory. According to this theory, networking depends largely on personal relationship, which includes trust, commitments, friendship, loyalty, shared beliefs, and shared values. Historical relationship between the participating firms is key to networks. The fourth is strategic management theory. This theory emphasizes profit maximizing role of the participant firms, different objectives, different levels of advantages, and the inputs and resources required for the functioning of the networks.
Let us summarize what we have learned from this module. Networking has been defined as a specific type of relations linking set of persons, objects, and events. It indicates that the relationships between the firms are specific and has some definite target, and it is not some general or casual group of activities. Networks involve collaboration between the firms to find solutions to common problems, combine resources to gain knowledge, R&D, achieve economies of scale, gain technologies, enter otherwise inaccessible markets, production, exports, finance, and marketing. Networks leads to growth of the firm, allows the individual firm to utilize resources available with others and increase their efficiency. The major benefits of networking are the material benefits, psychological benefits, and the developmental benefits. Important forms of networks are informal membership based development, joint action, and project networks. Other forms include strategic alliances, joint ventures, joint units, and the dynamic networks. Among the theories of networking, we can have networks and hierarchies, which consider networks as an intermediate between markets and hierarchies and does not consider firms as isolated utility maximizer. Then the transaction cost theory, which defines networks which derive advantages of both market and hierarchy forms of organization and prevent transaction failure. Relationships between these firms are flexible and can always change to suit the environment. Then there are other theories like network theory, resource-based theory, social network theory, and the strategic management theory.